Watercolor beginners, are you frustrated when you use all these beautiful colors in your paintings and for some reason they don't look right? They're not beautiful? Why? Used all these beautiful colors. Shouldn't your landscapes be gorgeous? Well, in today's video, I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to be successful with landscapes, but a lot of beginners think it's all about color. But there's this really cool quote going around lately. I think it harks back to Richard McKinley. He's an oil painter, and he liked to tell his students that values do all the hard work while color steals the glory. So in today's video, we're going to see that principle in full effect. I'll give you 5 tips. That's 10. I'll give you 5 tips on how to paint a landscape painting, the basic things to pay attention to when you're painting a landscape painting. And we'll take a look at 2 paintings that I did too. One very colorful and one with a very simple palette that I painted with just 2 colors. And I put a reel out to my followers asking them which painting was their favorite. And you will be surprised which was their favorite. And it kind of backs up what Richard McKinley used to teach his students. So let me introduce myself. I'm Rachel Parker Varner, and I like to teach not just the how, but the why of watercolor, so you move along your art journey a lot faster. There's 2 ways that you can follow me for free. You can join my Patreon, which I will talk more at the end of this video about the paid part of my Patreon, but you can also join my Patreon for free to keep in touch with what I'm doing. On my Patreon, I will put a line drawing for this particular painting. And so be sure to join my Patreon for free so you can get this line drawing. Be sure to join my Facebook group for free where you can upload your paintings or just ask questions to the group. If you ask for feedback, we will give it to you. And it's just a great supportive community of other artists and beginners and advanced alike. I have some amazing painters on there that give the best advice. And I also make a point to comment on every posting on that, on the Facebook group. So be sure to check that out. You can also follow me for free on my community tab if you don't want to join any of these other websites. I know that can be annoying to have to join this and join that. I do post on my community tab a lot too. Let's jump into this video. Here are 5 tips for beginners to painting landscapes. All right, tip number 1 is to incorporate a variety of shapes in your landscape painting. And what I want you to notice is with this landscape, with the horizon line, I do not put it smack bang in the middle of the image. I don't cut the rectangle perfectly in half. The sky is a little bit bigger than the water. So let's draw roughly the rectangle of the sky. That can be considered a shape. Sorry, this is so wobbly. Okay, so that's one rectangle, and then we have this other rectangle. All right, and those 2 rectangles are not equally the same shape. The sky is bigger than the water. Now you could have made it different and made the water bigger and the sky shape smaller. That would have worked too. And in fact, let's see if this makes this a better painting if we crop it to be even more interesting. So let's crop it so that the sky is bigger. Does that make this painting better? I think that makes it a more powerful composition. And now a layperson wouldn't notice that now the rectangle of the sky is way bigger than the rectangle of the water, but it is. And that really makes for a much more interesting composition. And in fact, that's a general rule about composition. You can break rules, but in general, if you have a variety of shapes, then that is more interesting than having all equal shapes. What if I would have made the hills in the background all equal shapes like this? Let me show you what I mean. So here's this shape of this hill. What if I would have put another hill like this and another hill like this? That is really boring. Let's look how I did the shapes. And of course, I do think I could improve, but here's a big shape. There's a medium shape, and then there's this one. And then back here, there's another shape that's a different size, and then this one. And see these, if you look at these, now that I look at it, I could have made these shapes a little more interesting too, because this shape here, this middle hill in the background, and this hill are kind of the same shapes. So I could improve this definitely even more. Let's see how it would look if we cropped it so that the water is bigger. Would that make a difference? That is also much more interesting than the way that I have it cropped right now, like this. So, and I would say that I did a little bit better job on this painting with all the colors in it. The sky is much bigger, obviously, than this rainbow painting here. The sky is much bigger than the water than how I composed this other painting of the orange and neutral tint sailboats. So when you're painting landscapes or anything, instead of looking at it as this is the ocean, this is the sky, this is the sailboat, look at it in terms of shapes. This is the shape of the water. This is the shape of the sky. This is the shape of the hills. And is there a variety to those shapes? In the sailboats, I did a lot better job because there's a big sailboat. There's a couple sailboats on the edge that are leaning towards the middle boat. And I did that for a reason. I made these sailboats. I made this sailboat and this sailboat kind of lean in this way to direct the viewer's eye. So you can use sailboats or trees or the direction, if you have people in your painting, what way are they looking, to add energy to where they're pointing or where they're looking at to direct the viewer's eye into the painting. So that's another thing to look at with your shapes and how you design the shapes. All right, tip number 2 is to understand using warms versus cools. What is warms versus cool? A color can be warm or it can be really cool. Warm, think in terms of yellows, oranges, and reds, the colors of the sun. Those are warm colors. And cool colors are blues. They're like ice. Think in terms of ice. Ice is blue. So that's an easy way to remember what warms versus cools are. Warms are like the sun. They lean more sun-colored, warm-colored. Oranges, yellows, and reds. And cool colors are blue, leaning. So you can have a color that is very warm, hot even, which I would call a more red leaning orange. So you can see in this orange, I've mixed orange with some red. Red is hot. It's if yellow is warm, red is hot. So this is super warm orange, very warm. Then this is just straight orange. See, I put a dot here of the actual color. This is Daniel Smith permanent or transparent pyrrole orange. Daniel Smith transparent pyrrole orange. So this is just pure Daniel Smith transparent pyrrole orange. Then you see I added a little bit of ultramarine blue. Doesn't matter what blue you add. Any blue. Cobalt, cerulean, manganese, phthalo blue. You add a little bit of blue to the orange. It becomes a cooler orange in relation to this orange. So when you're talking about cools versus warms, you can't just say, oh, that's a cool orange. Well, in relation to what? Because this is a cool orange, but this orange that has a little bit of blue added is still warmer than this orange because this orange has a lot of blue added. So when someone says, oh, that's a cool blue, I don't understand even what they're saying because there's other more cool blues if you take more of, say, the orange out of it or the yellow or the red out of it. You have to compare two colors to be able to answer the question, is that a warm blue or a cool blue? Is that a warm orange or a cool orange? Well, it depends on the color you're comparing it to. Because like I said, this is a warmer orange than this, but this is a cooler orange than this. Does that make sense? So it's relative. Warms versus cool is relative. You have to compare each color to each other to designate whether or not it's warm or cool. And warms versus cool tell stories in your paintings. For example, and this is just one example of the many different stories warms versus cools can tell. Warm colors come forward. So notice in my landscape of this painting of the sailboats, I made the warmest thing the sailboats. The sailboats have really warm orange in them. There's no blue in the sailboats. And that makes them come forward and it draws attention to them. So one, it brings them forward and it also tells the viewer, hey, look at me. And the cooler parts of the painting, like the hills in the distance, are cooler. And as the hills recede in the painting, they get cooler, they get lighter, they get grayer, they get softer edged. Simply put, in landscape paintings, in general, you want the things that are more closer to the viewer to be warmer, and the things that you want the viewer to pay attention to warmer, and things that recede into the distance, you want those to be cooler or bluer, and things that are coming forward are redder and yellower and more orange. So that's why when I see a student putting a lot of yellow in their background, I'm like, you can do that if you're a master. I've seen masters put yellow in their background, but it's really hard to pull off. You really have to know what you're doing. Hint, put a lot of super warms in the foreground, like reds and oranges and strong dark colors if you have a lot of yellow in the background. Tip number 3 is for my intermediate painters and even beginners, you can start practicing this, is have soft versus hard edges. Charles Reed liked to say have half hard edges, half soft edges. For example, when I was painting this painting of this landscape, and this works for cats, dogs, animals, the things that I teach in my tutorials can be generalized no matter what you're painting. Flowers, landscapes, animals, and I will say real quick, my online paid tutorials are mostly animals. So if you join my Patreon thinking you're going to get a bunch of landscapes, you won't. But I will tell you this, if you watch my tutorials, you'll learn how to paint anything, including soft and hard edges and all the different ways you can get soft and hard edges. Let's look at an example of this painting. When I painted this hill, let's look at this footage. It is all hard edged. There are all hard edges and it looks so static. So what I did with this particular hill is after it dried, I took a scrubber with water and just lightly scrubbed in this area. And that helped give it a soft edge. Some of these edges are still hard. Along the horizon line, the edge is all hard. And after your paint is completely dry, and if you're using decent paper, but even student grade paper, if you use a soft scrubber and you're really gentle, you can do this technique. You get your scrubber of choice wet. There's stiff scrubbers, there's soft scrubbers. That's a whole nother video. I will link in the comments. But you let your paint completely dry. You make sure you're using non-staining paint, and you can scrub at your edge and either soften it or make a disappearing edge like I did on this hill. It gives it a more painterly look. It makes it look more incorporated in the painting. It makes it look less stuck on to have these soft edges. And those of you who have watched tutorial after tutorial of mine, when I'm painting animals, know that I soften a lot of edges and I create disappearing edges by making the values of in this instance, the values of the hill are lighter up against the background light value. So a light sky against a light hill makes for a disappearing edge, like what I created right here. I also have a disappearing edge here because I have dark water on dark hill. There's a disappearing edge here because there is a medium valued hill against another medium valued hill. I scrubbed out an area here. There's a lighter area highlight in this dark, otherwise dark part of this hill against the lighter value of this background hill. So try to find areas in your painting where you can create lost, disappearing edges, or at least soft edges. All right, tip number 4 is to add jewelry to your painting. And what is jewelry? Jewelry are those little details that really make a painting come alive. A lot of beginners are worried about overworking their painting, but really what they need to worry about is underworking the painting. And you want to keep going on your painting. You want to keep adding layers and glazes and details until it starts to pull together. So what is the jewelry in this painting that really pulls it together? It's the holes of the boat. It's that last few, not too much, but a little bit of spatter in this area to break it up. Think in terms of breaking things up with a few little details. And it's just those few little details. Also these small little boats, which I had to create those as I was painting around them when I painted the hills. These small details really add something satisfying to a painting that really help pull it together. And there's a zillion different ways to add details. You can, a lot of painters you'll see will add little birds flying, although that's kind of a played out, considered to be a bit played out. Sometimes telephone poles and lines will add that interesting jewelry to a cityscape. In cats or animals, the glint in their eye, the whiskers really help pull together a painting. So now, no matter what you're painting, again, adding jewelry at the end, those tiny little details really can pull a painting together more than you thought. When you wear jewelry, you just want one necklace. You don't want a necklace and earrings and bangles and rings and you don't want a bunch of jewelry on. Same thing in painting. If I put 20 sailboats in this painting, would it be as effective as if I think I have 5 or 6 sailboats? You just want touches. On my animal tutorials, I talk a lot about jewelry being the glint in the eye and the whiskers and a few little fur details, not too much. If you paint every single fur, it's gonna look busy. If you paint every single wave in this painting, it's not gonna look painterly. So you don't wanna put every single detail, but a few touches of details to fill the viewer's mind in enough about what's going on, and their mind will fill in the rest, and it actually makes the painting more appealing. But you do want to put some jewelry. So a lot of times I will turn to a white gel pen to add jewelry, or you can use masking at the beginning of your process to mask out little details that later you will remove the masking. I have a whole video on masking. If you don't know what that is, there's a lot of little tips and tricks that you can use to add jewelry no matter what you're painting. This is flowers, landscapes, animals, again, portraits. In this painting, I actually used a cool little trick. Oh, I should show you guys this. All right, let me show you. Great, these are really fun to play with. All right, so masking can really get messy and annoying. So what I have learned about lately are these wax pencils, and you can get those on Amazon. And I will link them in the comments, but also I have a whole supply list that have all my favorite art supplies. They are affiliate links, but they won't cost you anything extra. I do still suggest you shop around. You don't have to feel like you have to use my links, but I do make a little money off of that, so I do appreciate that. But at rachelstudio.com/supply list, I have all my favorite supplies. This is one of the new ones. It's a white wax pencil. Oops, that's not the right one. I have two things I want to show you with this. This is a wax pencil. And so at the beginning of the painting, before you get any paint on the painting, you put some wax on the sailboats, for example, or a few waves. And then as you paint over them, the wax will keep your paint off those areas and keep the sailboats nice and pretty and clean and white. Because in watercolor, the white is very preferably the white of your watercolor paper. You want to try to avoid using, white gel pen and white ink and white paint. We all do it, but it's much fresher and more beautiful if you can figure out how to use the white of your paper for the white in watercolor. Okay, this is another hack. And this particular item is a cream gel liner, but I would think any eyeliner that you could purchase would work. So this is white eyeliner. And I used this, I think I used it on the boats. I definitely used it on another painting that I just did that I needed white highlights and some fur, and it worked really cool. All right, are you ready for the piece de resistance? It is tip number 5, the most important things beginners should pay attention to. It's values. What are values? Values are the lights, mediums and darks. This is a dark value. This is a medium value. This is a light value. It's white. So lights, mediums, and darks. And no matter what you're painting, the number one thing that is going to do the hard work in your painting is, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I believe, which is values do all the hard work. Color steals the glory. And this is probably really well, it really is demonstrated well when you look at these two paintings. These two paintings are very similar. I believe the one on the bottom is a little bit better designed because I got the sky bigger and the water smaller. What really holds this painting together is the strong contrast in values. What are values? The darks, so the mountain in these paintings are dark. The sailboats are super light. And then the clouds and also the water are medium values. So there's a nice balance of values in relation to each other. There's a few little pops of super lights in the light sails and the light sparkling on the top of the water. There's a good amount of mediums, and then there's a pop of dark in that dark hill behind the sailboats. And they're in a nice balance to each other. Similarly, how you don't want two shapes to be equally shaped and equally sized. You don't want equal amounts of darks, mediums, and lights. You want a little bit of light, and then a medium amount of medium, and some darks, or a pop of dark, and a bunch of light, and a little bit of medium. You want the mix of values in your painting also to be unequal to each other. Think of a simple abstract painting where you have a block of black, a block of medium, and a block of white, and they're all the same size, and there's just 3 blocks. A white one, a medium, and a black one. That would be boring. You want to mix up your shapes of values to be different sizes, if that makes sense. So you want all your values in a painting. You want to use strong darks against lights. Often will create a really strong composition to have super light lights against super dark darks, like I have in these watercolor paintings of sailboats. And you want them in a nice amount in relation to each other. But it's the values that really make these paintings powerful. It's not the color. And I'll tell you a little story. I posted these two paintings together in a reel and asked people what was their opinion, which one did they like the best. And more often than not always, but more often than not, people chose the painting that is in this reel right here at the bottom, the one that I just painted with 2 colors. And so color definitely didn't steal the show in that painting. It was truly all about the values and the simple color design. But instead of using 5 colors, I used 2 colors in this one. And it truly did depend on the strength of the design in the values and how I arrange the values in relation to each other, and namely having that strong dark contrast with the light water and the dark hill and the little pops of light, colorful boats. That strong value design really made for more of a crowd favorite painting, which I was actually surprised. I really expected people to vote for the more rainbow colored painting, but no, they didn't. People preferred, not everyone, but most people preferred the painting that was simpler, with a much simpler color design, that was just painted with 2 colors. And that is why I painted this painting of just 2 colored boats, the orange with the neutral tint, and this top painting. I created this painting to illustrate how beautiful a painting can be even if you have only 2 colors, because it's the values that make this painting really pretty. It's not necessarily the colors. And even in this top painting, most lay people will look at it and say, oh, look at that, those pops of orange, that's just gorgeous. They'll think it's the color. But really, it's the value that makes these paintings really strong. So those are my top 5 tips for making a strong painting. In this instance, it's using a demonstration with landscapes, but no matter what you paint, these 5 suggestions, of course, rules are made to be broken, but these ideas will help make any painting of any subject a lot stronger. So I hope that really helped. Thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed our time together. I hope to hear from you in the comments. Come post on my Facebook group. For those of you who are interested in learning from me more in depth, I will tell you now about my paid offerings on Patreon. First of all, if you don't know what Patreon is, Patreon was developed by its founders as a way for artists who were having a hard time making income. It's meant to free up artists to be able to do what they do best, which is create. And it's hard to be creative when you're worried about money and you're having to focus on making money for your art. So Patreon is a place where you can go and support your favorite artists. And so what it's like is subscribing to a magazine, except you're subscribing to an artist and they put out frequent posts to their members. My hair is bugging me, y'all. I need more hairspray, I guess. So if you would like to join my Patreon as a paid member, what I would recommend is joining for a year. So what that does is it gives you access for 12 months, even though you only pay for 10. So you get 2 months free when you join for a year. You can cancel anytime though. You're never locked in. And so when you join, you don't get access to just 1 or 2 tutorials. You get access to a whole library of pretty much everything I've painted over the last 5 years, which would be worth thousands of dollars if you paid for all those tutorials. But you can join for just as little as $13 a month, $9 a month, or join for a year is my recommendation for $130. And then you have access for a year. And there's a few other little perks that go along with joining for a year. So it's a really good deal. You get access to a whole library. Be sure to poke around. I have lots of information about how to find tutorials. You can reach out to me for suggestions. I'm kind of like the Disneyland of tutorials. There's something for everyone, for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. I have playlists and collections, and you'll find all that when you join. So I hope you'll join me, but at least join my Patreon for free to stay in closer touch with me, and you'll see what I'm working on. And I hope to see you there. I hope to see you on my Facebook group. And until next time, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody. Yes. Oh, hey, Felix. Do you want to say hi to everybody? This is, oh no. He's my, he's not like that. He's really sweet. But he was a feral cat since he was a kitten, and he showed up on my patio. He's my newest cat. I brought him in, and he cuddles on my chest. He's really sweet, but sometimes he doesn't like to be picked up. Sometimes he'll let you, but that was not the time. But anyway, that was Felix, and he really is the sweetest cat. Anyway, okay, now I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to look over here and see what I'm supposed to be talking about here. Oh, I love this one. Okay. So tip number 4,